So tell me who I'm praying for this week, Aaron Gleeman.
You will pray for me, first of all.
I think you've got some names queued up for that I should be praying for. Maybe Bailey Ober being one of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, go up and down the roster, really. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about Ober, because that has sort of come to a resolution a little bit. We tried to predict what would happen on the last Patreon show on Wednesday, and I basically got it right. But they finally reached the point where they just couldn't continue with this. I mean, he went 0-5 with a 9.00 ERA in the month of June, allowed 14 homers, which is tied with Bert Blyleven for the most home runs ever allowed in the month of June. It's as bad a month as you can basically have. And, with Ober, I get that they wanted to give him as much leash as they could, because prior to June, he had pitched pretty decently, and at least his strikeouts were down a little bit, the velocity was down a little bit, but he was pitching pretty well. He still had a 3-something ERA. It was at least relatively in line with the rest of his career, and we've seen from Ober over the years that he will have some of these blow-up starts. They're usually the first start of the season, but and recover from it pretty quickly and then get back on track and have a good stretch. They were clearly hoping that would be the case here when he started to struggle, the first couple of starts of June. But when you toss in the fact that the velocity was way down, there were games where he walked 6 guys, which he doesn't do in a month sometimes. Strikeouts were way down. Homers were, through the roof, obviously. And there was a physical issue too, which is the hip that he's been dealing with from spring training. And so I feel like you fold all those factors into it. And to me, they should have probably cut bait, or at least shut him down, which they ended up doing finally. They placed him on the IL with a left hip impingement. The problem, though, as we discussed throughout all this, is who's replacing him. And as we record this, we literally still don't know who's replacing him. So they moved Chris Paddock up from Saturday to Friday, which is tonight, to buy them basically 24 hours longer to decide who they want to step into Ober's rotation spot, which will now come up Saturday against the Rays. It could be Travis Adams for a short start. It could be a bullpen game.
It would be on Travis Adams. Travis Adams is somebody in AAA who's been on one of the things that the Twins have been trying out in the minor leagues, which is throwing 60 to 80 pitches every 4 days, like consistently. And not that they're not doing a 4-man rotation down there. They're just having a group of guys trying to do that, so they find some way to get them into those games. Saturday would line up with his 4th day.
Yes, because he started for the Saints Tuesday,
right? So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off.
Yeah.
And then his 4th day is Saturday. Right?
Now, he wasn't good Tuesday. He didn't make it out of the 3rd inning.
No, he didn't do a very good job Tuesday. No.
And last time they called up Travis Adams, he stuck around for 3 days, didn't pitch, and went back to the minors. He's certainly not a top prospect, but unfortunately, Festa and Simeon Woods-Richardson are already in the rotation. Zebby Matthews is injured. Pablo Lopez is injured. And the guy who would be the best prospect next in line at AAA, which is Andrew Morris, is injured.
Right.
You look, it could be someone like Marco Raya, who's pitched a little better of late, but he's still got, 6.5 ERA at AAA. Corey Lewis has been terrible and just pitched again and has a 8 ERA at AAA. Randy Dobnik's got a 7 ERA at AAA. There just aren't any real, not even appealing options, but almost just like competent options,
feasible options, right?
Yeah. Even just for a start or two to get you through this period, to get you to the All-Star break where you can maybe reset or something like that. And so, I guess my assumption is it'll be Travis Adams maybe paired with, Joey Wentz or something like that, someone who can piggyback, give a little length, try to get through 5 innings between the two of them, something. But it's not a good situation, and I definitely think that played a part in sticking with Ober, in my mind at least, a start or two longer than they probably should have. I thought it became very clear that Ober just was not right. He just was not physically right. And they went 0-5 in his starts, and most of them, they were out of the game in the 3rd inning or something. And that's played a big part in the collapse of this team over the last month or so. But if you had even a healthy Andrew Morris or Zebby coming back, I think they would have probably pulled the plug on Ober a week or two ago. But you just didn't. And I guess you can make the argument like, are you expecting any of the guys who are now going to replace him, whoever that ends up being, Adams, etc., to be significantly better than that? Well, I would expect them to have a lower ERA than 9.0, but I don't expect the Twins to win many of those games, really, if it's 3 starts, 4 starts. And I also now think this raises the question of like, what is the plan or the timeline with Bailey Ober? Because from the Twins' point of view, and Baldelli even said this after they placed him on the IL a couple days ago, where he was like, guys pitched through this, Bailey pitched through it, but he just felt he got to the point where he couldn't pitch through it. Well, if they're not even kind of willing to say this is a specific injury, then what is the plan or the timeline for him returning to the rotation? Because it's not like, oh, he'll be healed in 4 weeks. Well, if it's just a matter of let's give him some time and he can work behind the scenes and try to get his mechanics right and maybe let this calm down. But it's let's say it's still a situation, and I'm just speculating because they really haven't talked much about what the actual injury is, where he's just going to have to pitch through it whenever he returns.
Sure.
That to me is a pretty scary thing too, because I just have no faith in his ability to pitch through it. So that's where the rotation's at.
He was pitching through it and being somewhat effective in May. I mean, that's we don't know exactly how much it was significant.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think, yeah, he was pitching through it and that existed, but I think it got to a point where it flared up again. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe the hope is they get the flare down. You know what I mean? To the point where coming out of the All-Star break, 2-3 weeks of rest here.
Right, but there's still 2 months after the All-Star break. Like, how are we getting him through this? And this is not meant to criticize Bailey Ober. He's clearly hurt. And it's not his fault they don't have better options, obviously. But I guess that the rotation at this point is basically Joe Ryan and pray for rain.
And welcome to the end of this video. There's lots more. For another, just click on one of these boxes.
Or click on this circle in the middle to subscribe to all of our Twins Talk.
Thank you.
Cleveland and the